Welcome to the Executive Alliance podcast. I'm Rebecca Snyder, Executive Director of Executive Alliance. In each episode, alternating hosts Christine Walsh and myself will sit down with accomplished women leaders in Maryland to explore the journeys that shaped them, the challenges they overcame, and the insights they've gained along the way. We'll also tackle the issues that influence women's leadership today, from opportunities for growth and advancement to the systems and barriers that can stand in our way. Through authentic conversations and shared experiences, we're building a community where women learn from one another, support one another, and move forward together. We're glad you're here. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the program. Today we have Donyel Bacon, who is an executive with the federal government, and she really sits at the intersection of software development, organizational strategy, equity, and innovation, especially around AI. And alongside those federal leadership responsibilities, she has a longstanding commitment to developing future leaders, which we'll get to talk about a little bit today. And outside of government, Donyel is probably best known for founding the Junior League of Howard County, which she did pretty much during the pandemic. It required years of research and organizational development, and within the first year, it established partnerships supporting women experiencing domestic violence, children in foster care, and individuals experiencing homelessness. So, Donyel, and you're a proud Executive Alliance member, so I'm super, super happy to have you here.
I am absolutely a very proud member of Executive Alliance, and I joined Executive Alliance during a time of transition in my career, and it was absolutely perfect. I will also say that the members of Executive Alliance individually have supported any decision that I've had to make, during this transition. And it has been absolutely phenomenal. And just the excitement that I get just looking on to all the programming that we have and how just these years that I've been in, I can look back and see how many women we've developed or we've just added to a conversation that sometimes you don't automatically get because it's uncomfortable. And so we've been able to, have some hard conversations, but at the end, it's been so beneficial for us as women.
Well, and I think that conversation, sort of learning from one another, is something that's so important to me in Executive Alliance. So I love that that's been a touchstone for you as well. And we got to live those values just now. I guess it's been a couple of weeks ago since we did this at the inaugural Baltimore Orioles Women's Night.
Yes.
I was really excited to see the Orioles kind of standing up for women leaders. And so we were invited, as you know, to be part of, I guess, the Women's Village at a recent game. And you and I were working the table
So
and
much fun.
asking everyone to tell us their best career advice for women. And so we thought it would be terrific. There were so many great ideas. So I thought it would be fun just to talk through some of the things that bubbled up.
Yes, and Rebecca, I have to say that that evening was so amazing. We had children as young as 6 years old.
Oh, that's right.
People
Yes.
who actually were already, in retirement, but all had something to add. So that was pretty exciting. I think I walked away from probably more knowledge from the 6-year-old.
Well, because she
It
was
was
the
so
one that
funny.
wrote "Be Well," and
Yes.
everyone around, you're 6 years old, you're coming up thinking, all right, where am I? How am I going to write on this piece of paper? But she was so cool and collected,
She
and
was. And the fact that she named off all the things that her mom is responsible for, I thought
Mhm.
that was even incredible. I said, she is in tune of what it's like to navigate, 6 jobs at once, being a woman. So she said it well, though, for us to be well.
And actually, I love when children, especially girls, get to see their moms in action. And you have a daughter, and so
Yes.
like, how do you model the woman leader that you want to be and you want her to be? Like, how do you just communicate that through in your everyday?
Yes. And so I have 2 daughters, but one is older and one is younger. So I will say that whether both of them similar personalities. My daughter said something to me that I thought was interesting. She said, "You've always been my hero." because you
Mm.
always know the answers. You seem to not be afraid. You seem to have so much courage. And when she said that, I was thinking, who is she talking about? Because
Right.
right, because that wasn't something that I even thought of. I just feel like when we have things we need to get done, we just do them. I will say that I'm always a planner, so maybe
Mhm.
that's the execution that she was witnessing. But for the both of them, um, one is just raising good humans. I just need them to be authentic and genuine, and to always be proud of any decision that they are making. And I will say that both of them are doing a fabulous job at that. I'll also say to work with integrity. It's okay
Mm.
not to know something, but integrity is so important in our value system in my family. And so I think, especially teaching girls, that you don't have to conform to be something else. It is okay to be 100% yourself. And
Right.
showing up as yourself, I think, delivers a better opportunity to really engage with people. So I think that I'm just so proud of the both of them for really living in that space.
Mhm. Well, and 2 things that jump out at me, from what you said were, like, the idea of that value system within a family, like a clearly articulated, "This is who we are, this is how we show up." I
Yes.
think clarifies so many other decision-making points. Like, if you're really grounded in, "This is who I am," then it cuts through a lot of clutter, I guess, is the best way to put that.
Absolutely. I think honesty and just is so important. I will give you an example, like my daughter, and just because you asked a question about them out, the younger one, she right now is trying to make a decision in terms of sports. She is a
Mhm.
soccer player, diehard, and now she's going to high school, so she sees the competition. And so she's trying to navigate, wait, I'm coming from this small school and I was the best. And now I'm
Yeah.
trying to understand, what that is. And all these other emotions are happening that we're walking through. And for me, it just feels like it is absolutely okay. It's just always opportunity to learn. And we use the term opportunity in our family a lot. You can always do everything. So let's be clear about that. But where are the opportunities that you can learn in the process?
I love that. And so that brings me to some of the career advice that we got. And I wanted to start with fake it till you make it, because I think we were
Yeah.
talking about this before we were recording.
Yes.
And based with what you were saying, your daughter's moving into a situation where she's probably not going to be the best, and how like that can rock anyone to their core. But I think women have this idea that, we've all heard the women need to know how to do everything on a job description before they will take the chance. And sort of that idea of maybe over preparing before you take on opportunity. So like that, I just, it's swirling in my head a little bit like, okay, perfection, not being good enough, and faking it till you make it. And I'd
Right.
love to hear your insights on that.
So when you and I were discussing this, I really thought about the younger version and even some of my mentees. It
Mm,
feels like when you're in your younger version, you say your mid career, well, actually, when you're kind of entry, you're coming into the workforce of mm, um, researching who's in the office, meaning in terms of the mission and all those things we always talk about. But I also think it's just something about showing up with confidence
mhm.
and delivering a message that you have, kind of taught yourself about how to land that position. So when I hear fake it till you make it, it's like I'm going to show up as if I'm already well versed in all these areas, which most often when you're first walking on, you're not, because there's so much more to learn. And I can look back on my career and say, exactly, I know that I was that person, early on. And thank goodness I've had great mentors along the way. And then fast forward when you think about, kind of where we are now, it's really about what you know and how you become an expert and how you have, even if it's things you don't know, how do you lean on others? How do
Mm.
you lean on others to kind of fill some of the gaps, so that you're not always faking it, but we're definitely going to make it. That is for
Well, you're
sure.
bringing these resources in, and as a
Absolutely.
team, you're making it. And
Yes.
because I think, and this speaks to me about like leadership development. I think when you're early in your career, you're like, okay, you're a tactical performer. Like you are doing certain things, you have your rubric, you're hitting it. It's not to say you don't have that when you're more developed as a leader, but you're you're just starting out. You're not directing others usually. You're the one
Absolutely.
being delegated to.
Absolutely.
And
And I
so,
will.
oh,
Mhm.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, like, for you, where did you sort of start to bring in that leadership aspect of working through others, and how was that transition for you?
I have to, so let me go back and tell you a really quick funny story. So I can remember sitting in the room, and at the time it was just senior execs around the table, and I was the person with all the answers, but they wouldn't ask me the question. I was the only woman. And I was actually the only one with a color, but,
Mm,
every week this would happen, and I felt so defeated. Like, how do I get past this? I walked out of the building, and I called my grandmother, and I said, "I need some help." She retired from the federal government, and she was in her position, she had to kinda navigate similar. So she said, "You stand up, and
mm.
while you're speaking, they're gonna listen to you." She said, "And you say, 'I have the answer.'" I have to say that was the most pivotal moment in my career because I started doing that and my name it was resonating. And when it came to decision making, they knew I had the answer, so they started asking me. But it took something so
Mhm.
very simple for the connection to happen. And in terms of actually moving forward, I had the confidence to start delegating more. I had already had a little bit of authority, but then it was full force now because now they were looking for me for the answers, and I had to delegate to get more in terms of resources.
Well, and I think you can only do so much as an individual, and
Yes.
when you start working as a team, then you can magnify your impact. But I wanna go back to your grandmother's advice because I think that's so fascinating that just the simple act of saying, "I have the answer," and coupling that with physically standing up.
Yes.
So, like, literally taking up more space. And,
Absolutely. And she
you
told
know
me to count. Rebecca, she said, "And you count 5 seconds. And as soon as you know that you have," she said, "you stand and you stand quietly with poise." So
I love that.
she said, "And you say," she said, "and don't say it too loud. I have the answer to that." And you immediately start speaking. You don't give them an opportunity not to hear you. I'm not kidding, Rebecca. It
That's a
was it was
master class right there.
it turned everything around at that moment. I'm not kidding.
And sometimes it is the simplest things. It's like a reframing or a physical space.
Yes.
Um, and so actually, I guess one of the things that came up in the career advice that we got really was about physicality. There were a couple times where people were talking about prioritizing your health or getting outside. And so we're such indoor cats these days. Like,
Yeah.
what does that advice say to you?
Oh, so I will say, I think I'm gonna say post-COVID, one thing happened on COVID, a lot of people, as tragic as it was, I think, bonded more.
Mm,
And as a result of that coming out, it does feel like we are in a time right now where we're not only connected, it almost feels like, we are in a position where you have to care for yourself. There was a time when I would work 12 and 13 hours a day. And then during COVID, all of that kinda ceased, and you
mhm,
felt what it was like to share space and time, more quality time. And so now I'm very intentional. I'm very intentional about not only prioritizing, but learning how to say no. I didn't know how to always do that.
mhm,
My plate would be so full, I would give 10%, 50%, and then I realized that's not beneficial to anyone. So one comes with honesty, what you can and cannot do. The second thing comes into how do you value yourself? I'll give you something quick that happened to me. One of my dear colleagues, actually, she's in the junior league in Georgia, and she's a runner. She does marathons. And I called her one day and I said, "I need your help. I need an accountability partner." And I said, "I know you're doing these marathons. I need to really get out there, get into shape, and I want to start running." And then she said, Rebecca just said to me, she said, "Accountability partner. If you don't love yourself enough that you can take care of yourself, I love myself enough." She said, "I don't like running. I run
oh, wow.
because I need to run.
Mhm,
She said, I don't want to be very old and can't move. I want to be able to be mobile. So that's why I run." She said, "I get up at 5 a.m. because I know that I love myself enough to do it." She said, "So you don't need an accountability tool. You just learn how to love yourself more." And I was on the phone like this. I said, what?
Oh, that's like real talk. That's,
So what I'm saying
wow.
to you is, yes. So when she said that to me, and I said, "Wow, okay." I thought I loved myself very well, but I understood. I understood what she was saying, and that also was a very I had to put a little bit more thought into it. And so now
Mhm.
I'm very intentional about how I spend time,
Right.
because it is mentally healthy for you to make decisions based on your quality of life.
And I'm just thinking back to, to the COVID times where you're right, you felt like you had, like everything stopped and you could then sort of sort out. It's sort of like when you clean out your kitchen cabinets. Like if
Yes.
I'm doing a big clean out project, I literally take everything out and then decide what I want to put back.
Yeah.
And I think because you can't know what you have until it's all sort of out on the countertop. And then you can really see what space you have available to you. Like if you just are like, oh, I'm going to pull one thing out and shove something back in, like all your crap's still at the back of the cabinet. And so I wonder if like COVID was our big kitchen cabinet reset in some
It
ways.
absolutely was. It was definitely clean out phase. And I think that COVID did something else. I think it really taught us that life is short. And
Mm,
so what are we going to make of it? And how are we going to add more value to the system? Whatever your system is, whether you're religious or not, does not matter. But where are you going to add in and how are you going to fill your space? And I don't mean take up space. I mean fill the space that, what you're living in. Sometimes I think that that came out of really talking how we're going to move my family forward out of COVID, which you and I were just talking about, in
hmm
terms of, how do you live well, but how do you make conscious decision and choices so that you're very intentional? And sometimes I think your job dictates something else, but you have to be honest about where is your value system and how does it play? You and I talked prior to the recording, and I was saying how my kid's schedule was busy, pick up, drop off, and my husband and I in passing, and the kids are, every week there is something. We have to pick up some things early, drop off, early. And I say that to say, that as what are we even teaching our children in terms of how when they move into the workforce and things like that? So my point is I think just being very intentional how you use space and how you
hmm
bring the value of health and wellness.
Yeah. And I'm wondering also, like, because it's so easy, people say yes for a variety of reasons. And it is difficult to say no. So I want to understand how you have the courage to say no, and it sounds like it's so fraught, but, like, is it self-discipline to be like, "Okay, I have X amount of time for kind of extracurriculars, and this is how I wanna spend it, and I'm gonna say no," or, like, are you setting really clear priorities? What's your strategy? It sounds so easy. Just say no, but that's a
It's
lot harder than it sounds.
it is, and it's also because to the core of me and in my DNA, I am built for service. I was
Mhm,
created for service. I'm very aware of why I'm here, why I exist is to serve others. However, I think when I realized that, and really I really think it's perimenopause, honestly, that came into place because I had to adjust. I had
Oh,
to
the
adjust
sheer
to
exhaustion.
cognitive brain fog. I had
Yep,
to adjust for this cognitive delay. And, they were not really words for what I was experiencing, but I
mhm,
do know that I want to show up 100%. And I was not doing that. I was given 10 or 15%, and it wasn't enough. And so I had to have a conversation with myself to say, okay, so I don't have the capacity at the moment. Not that I won't help at some point in the future, but at this moment, I just don't have the capacity because I want to give you 100% of whatever you're asking me. I just can't do that. Or I'll utilize my resources around me. So if there's someone else that can do what they're asking me to do, I'll just defer. Let me
mm,
make this connection for you because I think, this other person may be able to help and may have the capacity to help. I just can't at this moment. So
yeah,
at one time, I don't think I definitely could not have done that. But I have to do it now because it wasn't fair to the person or myself because they were not gonna get 100% of me because I didn't have 100% to give.
mhm. No,
So
that makes perfect sense, and that's a discipline that's like a muscle memory that you have to build over time in some ways.
I'll thank perimenopause for that.
Well, thank goodness glad we can thank it for something every once in a while.
Right.
But so you said a really big yes when you decided to found a new chapter of the Junior League. So tell me how that came about.
So Antoinette Brown and I were in the Junior League of Baltimore, and we lived in Howard County, but we had to travel, to a lot of places. And don't get me, so Baltimore is actually our core of what we always want to support. Let me first
Mhm,
of all say that. Um, and we helped Diana Emerson, so who was also a member.
mhm,
She started the Junior League of Prince George's County. And for those who don't know, Junior League is an organization to support women and is really to support women develop. And there's a lot of entry level, middle, kind of mid career women um, who kind of enter into Junior League. So Diana Emerson started Prince George's County, and she asked us to come aboard to support her. And at
mm,
the same time, we said we really need one in Howard. Howard has a lot of nonprofits, but not nonprofits that are dedicated to women, to women's growth, and all the things that come with us really developing our whole selves. So that's how it started. And it started like 2019, where we did the community scan to see, is it viable? Do we really need it? And the answer was yes, after doing all the research, putting a business plan together. And after
mhm,
completing the business plan, then also looking for prospective members to come in and to join that had the passion and the commitment to really serve Howard County.
mm. So what did that community scan look like? I guess I'm more familiar with, like market research to move into is it more similar to what we would expect from a business, or is it different when you're kind of starting a nonprofit?
Similar. It's similar. So we had to do research on every single nonprofit in the county.
Oh,
Looked at their
wow.
mission. We looked at their mission. We looked at their tenure, how long they had been here, their success, who were what, and the mission meaning, was it geared towards women, children? So we created this huge spreadsheet to show all of these things. Then we
Mhm,
also had to go, because we have Junior League of Annapolis, we have Junior League of Baltimore, and Virginia League Prince George's County. We had to say, is it a viable need? Because we have leagues within 25 miles of Howard
right.
County.
Mhm,
So then we looked at every zip code within all the other counties, and we did a comparison based on the Census Bureau of age of women, the population, the median income, because all of that is important. And then we also looked at schools. What does the schools offer? Where do they rank? We had to put all this information together so that we could have a true portfolio of how does Junior League of Howard County enter this space, but
mhm,
how can we be successful? And we needed those comparators to be able to do that. And then also, what are we going to do while we're here? So
right.
that was a secondary piece to it. But just really having the data to show, should we establish here?
Mhm. And obviously you should have because you did. And how is that chapter going now? Because I mean, you started in 2019, 2020 brought the pandemic.
So
There's been a lot of
we got our
change.
final approval. So we were approved in 2020 to use Junior League's name
Mhm.
in 2020. The official, meaning the final approval, I'll call it the final, because you're operating like a nonprofit with Junior League of Howard County's name. And then post that, they give you the final approval, which was 2022. And in 2022 to 2024 was under my leadership. And then I don't know if you've noted the term sustainer. So I became a sustainer, which meant I've done my active time, and now I'm more in a mentorship role. And Junior League of Howard County at the time of new establishment was not allowed to have sustainers. So
Got it.
so the new leadership has moved in, and they're doing a phenomenal job. The same partnerships that I established when I first started out, they're still there. They're thriving. They're doing very, very well.
That's wonderful. And for
Mhm.
people who aren't really familiar with the Junior League, I kind of think of it as a kind of organization that has a lot of the same goals and aims as Executive Alliance, but for women who are perhaps a little bit earlier in their
Mm,
career. And you do
absolutely.
like age out sounds so wrong, but that's when you become a sustainer, right? Am I
Sustainer
getting that
after
right?
you have after you have about, so some leagues have 7 years, 8 years of time. Some even, I think 8 years is the max. You do 8 years of active service. Also, Junior League is a community service organization. So they do hands-on in the community, whether it's food drives or, making donations to schools, taking a community project from its infancy stage, doing the research, getting an organization to, transition. This is what your success should look like helping them do a SWOT analysis. So the Junior
Mm.
League offers all those things for organizations, other nonprofits as well.
I didn't realize that you offered services to nonprofits. That's pretty impressive.
Yes, yes, yes. And just think about when we first started on this, and I have to credit Junior League of Baltimore for really teaching. When I first came in, I started Junior League of Baltimore, but that
Hmm.
the infancy stage, and there are a lot of things I will tell you, Rebecca, if you have not heard the history. um, Junior League of Baltimore has so much history in all the things they've done for Baltimore City.
I'll have to check that out.
Establishments, you absolutely, absolutely.
I
From
feel like that's another podcast episode just
I
rolling
think it
up
is. I
there.
think it is.
And so that kind of brings me to some of the career advice that we got, which was don't be afraid to ask questions. Um, and I think sometimes when you don't know something, you want to kind of jump over it and be like, oh, well, I think I know what that is, but I'm not really sure. So I'm not going to ask and maybe put you on the spot or put me on the spot. But I obviously didn't have the deep grounding in the junior league, and I wouldn't have known if I didn't ask that question. So I wanted to talk to you about sort of your attitude towards questions. I mean, we always say there's no dumb question, but how is questioning shown up in your professional life?
So I've always been curious about so many things. So I don't think asking questions has always been hard for me. I think that has been relatively easy, but I think it's relatively easy because I've grown up, with a larger family. So, and
Mhm,
for us to communicate, we had to talk with each other. I will also say, I think I started mentorship, meaning being a mentor very early on. I was coming out of on my way to college. So I say that to say I was teaching other young women how to ask the right questions. So I don't
mhm,
think asking questions for me has not been. I think sometimes it may be taking courage to ask a certain type of question, especially if it's from your leadership, because
mhm,
sometimes that may seem. And also too, if you work in certain parts of the federal government that you're working with the military, you have to
mhm,
understand the protocol of when to ask a question, the proper time. So, because there are rules in place for that. So, outside of that, but I'm never nervous for me, but I think it's because of my upbringing, because I
mhm.
was always around, and then also helping others to, be able to feel comfortable with asking questions. And sometimes I'll phrase a question if I'm not sure, like, I'm not sure if I'm even asking you the right question. But this is kind of what I need to understand. Do you have the answer for that? You know?
So it sounds like, sort of creating an open question so that even if you're not getting it quite right, you still can open a conversation. Like that
Yes.
piece is
That's
important
exactly
to
what it
you?
is. Just opening a doorway to say, I'm coming to you humbly. I'm very humble in my approach because I do need information, and I'm only really thinking about like leading up. So when I think about some of the positions, within my organization, there are some silent rules around how you approach people. And
I'm sure.
so, and I've never been one not to pick up a phone or stop by a desk. And that I do, but I came from private industry, so let me say that. And in private industry, it was you just go and speak to whoever you want to speak to,
Mhm,
and you ask questions. The federal government side of the house is a little different if working with like military. So, I got my hand slapped a few times because you need to go through someone's executive or whomever, but I would still ask. And the only thing I could do is, say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know the protocol, but can I still have the answer?
mm. Well, and I love that idea of it separating the question from the format. Like
Yes.
understanding those silent rules. And I think also for women, sometimes, especially I would imagine for women of color, understanding and navigating all those silent spaces can be very difficult. Not because you don't, not because you can't understand it or whatnot, but like, I think sometimes the systems are in place to keep the people in power and kind of like navigating through. I want to understand if you have strategies on navigating those sort of silent workplace rules.
Well, the first I would say is, and this is not my quote, but I use it as actually written on my board in my office, is be responsible for the energy you bring.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that because always show up with so much positive energy that you fill the room. So it kind of downplays if something is kind of heavy happening.
Mm-hmm.
And when you insert yourself, you're inserting yourself in a way that is that you are probing, but you're probing in a very respectful way. And again, I'm only giving this answer based on my work environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so because you have to know protocol and people. So for me, when I enter a space, I try to enter with not only positive energy, but I have already done my assessment a little bit on something a little bit that I know about, whoever's in the room, so that I can either comment on something, whether it was an accomplishment, or try to get some connection so that we have some common ground that we can work from. And
Mm-hmm.
that has just always been very helpful to me and how I kind of move. And even if there are some unknown rules, if I look ahead and figured out who was in the leadership chain of command, if I knew the one person, I probably would just cold call someone and say, "Hey, I'm going to be coming to this meeting and I just need to understand, what is the right way to approach whatever it is I'm trying to get accomplished." That
Mm-hmm.
has always been quite helpful. And, when I say this, some people may listen and say, "Why does she say it this way?" But I have to say it. I ignore the fact that I may be the only minority in the room. I
Mm-hmm.
don't pay that any attention because regardless, at the end of the day, I have to still do a job and I have to do it well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can tell if there are decisions that are made or, maybe I become invisible. But again, I know how to stand up now. So, so I make sure that I'm not invisible and, and I just make sure that I've done my homework so that I have the information that's needed and I'm going to deliver it in a way that is understandable so that so that it's really about understanding how to build confidence
Mm-hmm.
around when you are sharing something. But I think the first thing is being responsible for the energy you bring.
Well, and you move through the world with such serenity and such sort of like calm knowledge, I guess is the way I would put it. Um, and so I love that idea of kind of leaning into the energy that you bring. And it's not like you're trying to win people over with your enthusiasm. You're like, I want to be your friend. But
No.
you do make a strong connection with people and finding that common ground. I think
Yes.
it's a really that's I think great advice for how to navigate the work world because it strikes me also like that's how you build a network, like intentionally figuring out what do I need to get this done and assembling the resources to be able to do it.
And
Do you see any
Rebecca,
parallels?
yes, that's exactly what I do. So any organization that I've gone in to lead, I as soon as I go in, I figure out who SMEs at what. Because I cannot do the job all on my own. That is clear. So I find and I know things I'm good at. So in my organizations, I always look across whether it's down to like my supervisors or, if they're technical directors or whatever the SMEs or even strategists. I look and see who does what well, what accomplishments have they had, so I can have them in my toolkit. And I have very transparent conversations around this is what, the next iteration of whatever we're trying to build.
Hmm.
And I leverage their expertise, but I also celebrate their expertise because I want others to know that it is not just me, but this makes up a team. And I call it one. I normally start off any of my staff meetings with this: if one fail, we all fail, because we
Mm,
have to depend on each other, and we have to have an understanding of who's doing what. And it's okay for everyone not to know all the answers. Absolutely, it is. But you do need to have confidence enough to allow space for someone else to step forward to share their knowledge.
mhm.
I don't so that's what I've done in every organization, that I've led.
I love that. I'm also thinking, like in community, and as you're building community, you've done that through your work with the junior league. It feels like you do it also within your workplace. Like what comforts me in community is not feeling like I have to do it all myself. Like I know, okay, someone else is feeling led to work in this area. Another person might be led to do this, and I might care about all of those things, but I don't have the capacity to work in all those things. And so, like,
Yes.
knowing what you're good at and also having faith and sort of that people have your back and are going to be doing the work in a way that I feel comfortable with is so
Yes.
important. And I was curious if you had those feelings in your own workplace.
So let me say I've actually early on in my career when I was in private industry, I did not always delegate properly. Let me say that. And I'm going to say properly because I used to try to do it all. Because
Uh-huh.
what I realized is because I came in with not always having the level of trust that something would get
Mm,
done to my level of satisfaction. And that was a lesson that I had to really sit with myself to say, okay, so yes, it's not done the same way, and that's fine, but are we going to get to the same outcome? And their outcome may have been much better than mine. But it took maturity
mhm,
and also having a mentor have this conversation about how to do things a little different. And then also out girl when I came into my career, when I was in private industry, I worked for a large telecommunication company. And because I was the youngest person, it always felt like when my judgment was always second guess because the people,
mhm.
my workers, the staff had been there much longer. And
Right.
so they didn't really feel like that I had the experience.
Mhm.
Looking back on it, I kind of felt that they felt that way, which is probably why I didn't have the level of confidence and also confident enough to trust. But that came in time as I progressed. And so now I have no problem with it at all. None at all.
How did you learn to delegate? I think that's such a struggle for many people, for very capable women, for everyone. It's hard to unclench a little bit, say, okay, you might do it differently, and it's okay. So how do you do it?
Getting married and having children. Getting married and having children because I have to tell you, again, I'm a planner, so I know things out. I know, what is the next thing we're gonna do for the kids, for ourselves, and I think just watching my husband with our children, I think was enough, and actually he's way more detail oriented than I am, but I had to loosen a little bit. Now,
Mhm,
let me go back in my career for a second because that's fast forward, years after I started my career. But it took me some time, but it took me time because I had to figure out how to pay attention to strengths and weaknesses and
mhm,
also take the time to develop others. Like those are just pieces that kind of had to go into how to for me to build character. But I would say how I learned to delegate is to start being honest with this is something that is not in my capacity, but it actually is a part of your job function. And is this something you can possibly do for the team? Because we really need your help. So I started figuring out how to allow space for this is what you're good at and talking to your staffer and this is how it fits into the bigger picture. When I delegate, it's not just saying go do. It's really about
mhm.
as a team, how are we all benefiting? And that's also what I'm adding in as well. So it's
Mhm.
more of a conversation and it's not like you shall do.
Right. Well, it feels like systems thinking in some ways.
Yes, it
Um,
absolutely that's exactly what it is. Absolutely.
and we're all kind of self-centered people in the big scheme of things. Like you need to think about yourself and like, okay, when you're delegating, it's not I want you to do this for me. It sounds like you approach it as you have the strength that you can contribute to the project, the team, the group. Am I getting that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if in fact I'm asking you to stretch a little, I'm only asking you to stretch because I see that you have the qualities and maybe you have not been set up to learn and get, a few other things under your belt. And so I'm always looking at what can we add to the toolkit. And I will say that it's much easier. I can't even say that. I won't say that. I was going to say it's much easier for people who are, say, entry level, mid level, but that's not accurate either. I think it's having a conversation around where are you in your career and how can I help? There's
Mm-hmm.
there are some individuals who say they're 5 years to retirement. They really want to be retired in place and enjoy what they're doing. To come and have a conversation about what is your next position or how can it's like,
Not excited.
why
Hmm.
why are you having this conversation with me,
Right.
So, I think it's assessing it individually and not collectively, because I think that's our role. I think it's our role as leaders. You have to take the time to understand your people and how do they fit into the mission, but give them space to develop and give them the tools to develop. I
Mm.
believe in stretching. So, and also what I push and I've heard I do well at, I get to yes. So if you're telling me no in my brain, honestly, Rebecca, I can feel the wheels just turning. Oh, okay. Are we saying no because we're just used to saying no? Because I know
Mm.
there's a way around us getting this done. So if it's funding for money, then that's fine. I'll go make some connections and find the funding. If it's a technology, um, if it's something dealing that we don't have the tools in place from a technology perspective, then can we borrow it from someone? Like, so I just think there's always ways of looking at how to solve problems and
Well,
how to help people join you with it if they can see the benefit for themselves.
yeah. Well, and always kind of like failure is not an option, and like being agile enough to think through how you can get to a a different yes. It may not be the yes in the form
Yes,
that you thought,
absolutely.
but keeping that sort of North Star idea.
Yep. And
Um,
failure is opportunity. So even when I'm talking and now someone says, "Oh, I just failed at that." No, you didn't. You have now opportunity so we can do things something different. I mean,
yeah.
there's nothing in life is final other than death. Everything else is negotiable.
Uh, so true. Can you tell me about a time where, like, because I feel like you always learn so much from failure and discomfort.
Oh,
What
yes.
do you have a something that you'd like to share where, where there was a big learning opportunity?
Absolutely. So I would say I took over an organization that was a non-technical organization. It's the first time I led a non-technical organization. And I was, I think, coming into the position already with some knowledge that I was in a more of a caretaker role versus leading the organization. And that's because so many things had happened with the staff or whatever. And so I think I got kind of caught up into not leading the way I should have been leading, but helping the employees get past a point of what they felt like the organization had not done for them. So
Okay.
it was like me using all this time to right a wrong that happened. When I say years, like years before, which had nothing to do with the today. But I
Hmm.
just couldn't figure how to navigate how to get past that so that we could really get down to solving the things we were solving for mission. So the failure in that, and I'm going to say opportunity, was I should have shown up as myself
Mm.
and not someone else. I showed up as someone who had to really figure out how to try to solve a problem that could not be solved. And I had to be honest with that, but
Yeah.
I wasn't honest about it. I was trying to just pacify the reality of what was happening.
Hmm.
But at the same time, my leadership in terms of how I should have been leading was kind of coming down and the all the emotional stuff of what happened in the past was here. And so I was trying to figure these things out, even with calling in help from an organization within our agency that can help, like with problems and things like that, like organizational
Hmm.
development. And so my lesson there was even if I have knowledge about something that has happened, it is still my job and my duty because I'm there to fulfill mission space with taking
Right.
care of my employees to show up as myself. Now, the employees may not, whatever has happened, is just having a conversation about what I'm really here for and helping them as much as I can, but not absorbing myself with it. And so that's how I felt. And I'm not giving you all the details around it. I'm kind of trying to be surface purposefully, but I think the failure came in that I was not direct enough and that I did not lead the way I should have really led because I was pacifying. I wasn't
But,
showing up confidence and strong.
you were speaking to my heart because I've had situations and I'm thinking back like, oh gosh, what an interesting reframing, because I've had situations where staff is kind of wants to re-adjudicate things that happened maybe like a decade ago. And that hurt is still so close to the surface,
Yes.
but I can't do anything about what happened 10 years ago. I
No.
can only like maneuver in this space, but I didn't know how to like get from that emotional anguish that that person
Yes.
was having. And it sounds like maybe you had a lot of emotional anguish over a couple
Yes.
different people
Yes.
to like move it along to say, but this is what we're going to do now. And what I
Yes.
heard you say was that, you have to acknowledge the hurt, see where you are, and keep it about the mission. And I think I didn't do it adroitly enough to do it in a way that didn't feel like I was discounting that emotional side. And
Yes.
so,
Mhm.
and people bring their whole selves to work, whether they think they do or not. So, like, how do you deal with those big emotions in institutions?
Whew. Okay. So that was a lesson learned for me. So now my approach is to be authentically myself. I just cannot, and again, we go back to integrity. I was working with integrity in the sense that I was ensuring that everyone was receiving what they needed as an employee.
Mhm.
But I will say that I think right now, the emotional piece. So when you work in a certain mission space, so just say we're developing software. w- we are developing software. It's very cut and dry. These are the requirements. These are the experts we need. This is the language that we're going to use. This is the hardware, we're going to, so it's not like it's people driven, but it's driven, not emotional driven. This organization is a little different because I had to tap into all the emotion about family matters that were happening, the what the old leadership did or did not do and how they did it, and all these things. I had to sit in a space that I had to really learn some things about myself. What I did not realize is that I don't think I was tapped in enough emotionally because I
To
really never
yourself,
had.
you mean?
Say it again.
You weren't tapped in emotionally to yourself or to the others or
To
to whom?
myself, because all these years I have worked on programs that you're just using tools, you're building tools.
Mhm.
And so when you deal with and you're in an organization that is not about the tools so much as more about emotional things. And I think for a person like me who likes to get the next thing done, remember I told you early on I'm a planner.
Mhm.
So I know already next year this time what I plan to do. I know the year after that what is going on.
I'm
So for
impressed.
me, and I did this thing which I thought was even funnier. Actually, I did it in the junior league. AJLI offered, they do an assessment of your personality or
Mhm.
something. And so the results of that was that I don't do well with small talk. Like it's like,
You don't do
okay, the
okay.
mission. So this particular organization, I came in and I shared my results and I said, this is so interesting. What do they mean I don't do small talk? And they laughed and was like, we will have a whole conversation for like 30 minutes and you will give your opinion about adding one thing in, about you personally, but you check out and go back to your desk and start working on work.
Well, 'cause you got stuff to do.
But I had no idea because I feel like I'm always talking and sharing, but I don't think I do it at the level that was needed in this organization. So I
Mhm.
thought that was funny. And so then I started talking to my other organization. Like I served on the board of Girls on the Run here for Central
Mhm.
Maryland. And so, I was listening in to like really think about how I show up. That really caused me. And I said, oh my goodness, this is exactly what I do. I did not realize that I can see in a conversation that it's like I check out after this a little bit of a small talk, and I'm thinking about, okay, so what are we doing here? What is the next thing we need to do? I
Mhm.
had to learn to not do that. That was one of the lessons that I learned about dealing with emotions, that you, one, have to meet people where they are, and you have to add in. Sometimes people may need a little bit more time, then you have to see if you have the capacity to share. If not, then it's okay to say that. But for me to have teams and organizations of people, and I mean outside, that said the same thing, that I'm just about business, it's enough. Now, the one thing I will say that they did say though, but if we call on you and you say you need something, you'll stop what you're doing and give it to us right away, or
Yeah.
you will say what we need and it's done because you'll make a call. But I'm saying it to you to say, if I heard someone say that, it would say, well, is that person really authentic? Like that's how I felt walking away, which is why I had to really start processing my own emotion to figure out, well, why do I function this way?
Mhm.
Why do I
Yeah.
function this way? And what I came up with is because I think early on in my career, I learned to just get things done, like because I had to. I was on the grind. I had grit. Thank goodness I don't have to have it now because I'm getting older. But
Well,
we will always have it as women. But my point is, when you get to a point in your career, you have to transition. I don't know if my transition was as seamless as what I'll say,
mhm.
that I had to
Well,
learn to tap in.
and I think it, like, speaks to blind spots a little bit, like, I mean, you're a caring and, like, super kind individual, and that comes across, and you know how much you care about people and community and serving others, and so to have this, like, perspective that you check out after you've contributed, "On Saturday, I did blah, blah, blah." Okay, check the box of social interaction, now let's move on to the agenda. Like, that's a blind spot that, your like, your productivity value is coming more to the forefront at that point.
Yes.
And it's so
Well,
hard to know what your blind spot is until
but I have to say,
until
going back to Executive Alliance, so the one thing that I will say that I have absolutely loved is when we have our social hours and we're not really talking about work. It helps me in that aspect because I know that I have to be engaged. I have to engage. One, I just miss all the members. It's a time for us to get together, but it's just great so it's really helping me to refocus, to be 100% involved in the conversation that's happening because we're
Mhm.
not solving anything at that moment. Because I
Right.
know I'm a problem solver, and I think that's what comes into place. So it looks like I'm checking out, like, oh, to the next thing. But it really is because I think I've had to function that way. But every meeting we've had, it has been like, oh, I can just focus on who's in front of me and what are they doing and how is it going. And it's just
Right.
it's a wonderful thing to be able to have that piece
Yeah. And
if you don't have it at work.
it's a muscle memory. Well, and it is so much fun to just develop those relationships and know that, you're working in a world of accomplished women that all have something to contribute and all
Yes,
have something to receive. I think that's
absolutely.
one of the wonderful pieces. So as we wind up, and we could talk literally for hours, but we'll have to come back again and do something else. But I wanted to ask you, kind of as we wrap up, what your best advice for women in their careers is.
So I'm going to say be authentic. And when I say that, meaning it is okay for women. The superwoman syndrome. We
Mm,
always want to do everything. We got to be the financer. We have to be the real estate person. We have to be the mom, the dad, and everyone else, especially if your husband's away on travel, whatever. But I think that it is okay to ask for help. And I also think it's okay to know that it's okay, that you don't have to do everything. It is okay to outsource. If you need to, have someone come clean your home, it's okay. I have a girlfriend who absolutely refuses to do that, but she is drowning and she refuses to tell her husband that she's drowning because she's trying to take care of kids and she's working. And I'm like,
Mm,
no, you just need to outsource. And it's sometimes people may not be able to do that, but I think it's a part of the conversation. So the advice I would give is, as I'm really focusing on women in their careers, is be authentically yourself. It is okay to say that you need support, you need help. Because I know for me, for the longest time, I would never say that. Oh, if I have to be up 18 hours to get something done, you will never see me sweat. And
mhm,
so, but there comes a cost to that. I don't know if you've ever read the body, what is it called? Your body keeps score. Over
mhm.
time, that level of stress is just not healthy. And where does it land us as women, right? I mean, you get to little older in life and you can't function the same and then you hit this wall. So it's really about taking care of yourself. But you have to, and I would have tried to give you something else, Rebecca, but I think right now where we are, and we are really in an interesting position as women. We've made some progress, but there's so
Mhm.
much more that we can do. But it's really about one, supporting each other, and two, navigating the resources we have so that we can be the best we can be.
I love that. Danielle, thank you so much. It is always such a delight to talk to you.
It is
Thank you for
always great
spending
talking
time.
with you.
All right.
Thank
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Executive Alliance podcast. We hope today's conversation inspired you, challenged you, and reminded you that leadership is a journey best traveled together. Executive Alliance is a catalyst for women leaders in Maryland. We believe in advancing women's representation at the highest levels of leadership in business, civic organizations, and government. To learn more about our programs, events, and membership opportunities, visit executivealliance.org. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share it with a colleague, and leave a review. It helps us continue to amplify the voices, experiences, and impact of women leaders. Until next time, remember that every woman has something to teach and something to learn, something to offer and something to receive. When we recognize the value and potential in one another, we become stronger leaders, stronger organizations, and a stronger community. Keep reaching forward, reaching back, and bringing more women into the light.